Hello everyone, I am Alfian and today we are going to solve the Hackerrank form of our algorithm challenge called the diagonal difference. In this case, we are trying to solve a two-dimensional array that contains a matrix of numbers, and we are tasked to calculate the difference between the top left to the bottom right diagonal and then the top right to the bottom left diagonal. So for the first one, we are calculating 1 plus 5 and then plus 9, and then the result is stored elsewhere. And then for the second one, we are calculating 3 plus 5 and then plus 9, and then the result will also be stored elsewhere. In order to solve this kind of problem, we are going to calculate the difference between the two numbers from the calculation. The absolute difference means whatever the calculation is, the result will always be positive. Let's say 8 minus 10 is equal minus 2, and then for this kind of problem, the difference is always be 2 with the positive number. And then for this kind of matrix or two-dimensional array, for the first iteration, which is the I, or we are using a common for loop for the first iteration. This is the I, which is 0, and the I, which is 1, and then I equals 2. And then for the J, we are iterating the number 1, which is J equals 0, and then for the J equals 1 is 2, and then J equals 2 is 3. And then going forward. So without further ado, let's solve this one. We are trying to use the array destructurization called the left to right, which is we are using the LR as the acronym, and then right to left. Then for the initial value will be 0, and then we are defining the array length. We don't have to define the complete two-dimensional array length. We are using, since it's a square matrix, we are just using the I, or the first dimension, which is these parts, as the length of the array, called n, and then using the parameter of the two-dimensional array, the array length, which is 3, and then we are using for loop. We are iterating just one, not the entire two-dimensional array. And you might be wondering why only one and not two-dimensional array, because the first iteration we are directly calculating the 1 and 3, not calculating the 1 with 3, but we are pointing the 1 and 3, and then for the second one, for the second iteration, we are pointing the 5, since the 5 is on the middle part of the matrix. We are pointing it 2 times, and then for the final iteration we are pointing the 9 and then also the 9. Okay, so let's jump to the code. We are using TypeScript in this case. For the top left to bottom right, we are directly calculating with the array destructor, array with the current iteration, and then for the J part or the second dimension, we are pointing this part, which is 1. So we are using the also the I, which is 0, the current iteration 0, and then if we are on the second iteration, which is the I is equals 1, then the array will be pointing to 1, and then the second dimension will also be pointing 1, which is the I, this is the I, and this is the J, which is 1. You have to take note that an array always or mostly starts with 0, since we are defining 0 here and not 1 for the first iteration. And then if the final iteration, which is 2, and it's still valid because we are still below the length, which is 3, and the iteration will continue, and then the array of the second element, and then the 2 dimension, which is also 2, and then the array will be, this is the 0, 1, 2, and then for the J or the second dimension will also be 2, like this. This is 0 and 1, and this is the 2, which is 9. And this is the tricky part. For the top right to the bottom left, we are trying to solve it by using the first dimension, which is just like the top left to bottom right, like this, iterating the array like this. And then for the second dimension, we are passing the constant of the array length, which is the n. We can use the n, but it's not completed yet, because if we are using the just n, and then the n will be pointing to the third element on the second dimension. We don't have the third element, we only have the 0, and then this is the 1, and this is the second of array element position, and there is no 3 or the third position. So we are using -1, and then -1 will be pointing to the second element, which is 3. And then for the next iteration, in order to get the 5, we need to point out the second dimension. If we are using just the n -1, we will iterating the 3 and then 6 and then 9. We don't want that to happen as the iteration goes. So we are using the -I, which is the I of the for loop. So for the first iteration, for the top right to the bottom left, we are pointing the array 0, and then the second dimension is n is 3, -1 is 2, and then -0 for the first iteration. And for the second iteration, this will be 1, and this will stays on 2, and -1, which is 1. This is the 1. And then for the final iteration, this is for the first dimension, this is 2, and then this calculation is also returning 2, and then -2, which is 0. The first dimension is 2, and then the second dimension is 0, which is 9. I hope you understand this part, and then don't forget to return, since the function requires us to return a number. We are using the math absolute and calculating the top left to bottom right with the top right to the bottom left. I'm sorry for the bad pronunciation. So let's run the code. So for the math absolute, no matter how if the calculation returns a negative number, it will be converted to the positive number. If it's already positive, then it will stay as positive number. So that's about it. I hope you understand this video, and if you have any other solutions or any questions, you can ask on the comment section, and I will happily answer everything. Goodbye.